It was an old farmhouse, creaking with age and abandonment. Jena and her younger brother Luke had never been the type to believe in ghosts or the supernatural, but when their parents decided to sell the house in the country for something smaller, they had no choice but to spend one last night there, packing up whatever was left behind. The house sat on a lonely stretch of land, the kind that made the air feel heavy at night. Trees, twisted and gnarled, stood like sentinels in the distance, their branches scratching the windows whenever the wind blew too harshly. It had always been a place of strange noises and flickering lights, but it had never been frightening until now. Jena was in the living room, wrapping up old photo albums. Luke was upstairs, searching through the attic for forgotten boxes of their childhood toys. The house was eerily quiet, save for the occasional gust of wind shaking the walls. Or so Jena thought. Suddenly, a soft whisper brushed past her ear. She froze. Her eyes darted around the room. No one was there. She chalked it up to the wind, or maybe exhaustion. But then the whisper came again, louder this time. She stood up, heart racing, and turned toward the stairs leading to the second floor. "Luke," she called, but the words seemed to vanish into the cold air. She climbed the stairs cautiously, the wooden steps groaning under her feet. When she reached the top, the house felt different, darker somehow, as if something had changed, something hidden beneath the floorboards. Jena felt an unease she couldn't explain, a coldness wrapping around her chest. "Luke," she called again, stepping into the hallway. From the corner of her eye, she saw the attic door creak open on its own. The hair on the back of her neck stood up. She didn't want to go up there, not alone, not tonight. But curiosity tugged at her. The whisper seemed to beckon her. Jena ascended the narrow staircase to the attic, her pulse hammering in her ears. The air grew thick with dust, and the wooden beams above her seemed to groan in protest. The attic was a cramped space, filled with old furniture, forgotten boxes, and half-finished paintings their father had worked on. And there, standing at the far end of the attic, was Luke. But something was wrong. He was staring at the wall, his body stiff and unmoving, his eyes wide open but unblinking. At first, Jena thought he was asleep, but then she saw his lips move, almost imperceptibly. "Luke," she whispered, but his words came out as nothing more than a low murmur. His voice didn't sound like his own. It was hollow, distant. "Jena." The voice wasn't Luke's. It was something darker, older, with an unsettling rasp. "I've been waiting for you." A chill ran down her spine. She backed away slowly, eyes locked on her brother. He didn't react. Instead, his mouth opened wider, impossibly wide, as though something inside him was trying to break free. The whispering grew louder. It was no longer just a whisper. It was a chorus of voices, all speaking at once, surrounding her. They seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Suddenly, the room seemed to shift, the walls closing in, the air growing thick and suffocating. The shadows in the corners stretched, twisting into dark shapes. Jena wanted to scream, but her throat was tight, frozen. She couldn't move. She was trapped, caught in some kind of nightmare she couldn't wake from. "Help me." Luke's voice now echoed in her mind, though his body remained still, locked in place. Jena rushed forward, shaking him, but he didn't respond. His eyes were fixed on something she couldn't see, something in the darkness. And as she touched him, a sudden jolt of cold shot through her fingers, sending a surge of terror through her chest. The attic door slammed shut behind her. The whispering voices grew louder, suffocating. Jena spun around, trying to open the door, but it wouldn't budge. It was as though the walls themselves were alive, pushing against her. Then, the darkness in the corners of the attic started to move. It wasn't just shadow anymore. Something. The whispers turned into screams. Jena turned back to Luke. His body remained there, but his eyes had changed. They were dark, empty, like those of something that wasn't human. something that had been waiting in the house for years, waiting for them. "Jena," it hissed in Luke's voice, "come closer." She backed away, trembling, the house itself seemingly alive, its ancient bones protesting against whatever was happening. And then, from the darkness, she saw them, faces pressed against the walls, their eyes gleaming with hunger. They were waiting, watching, and they wanted her. She ran. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. As she reached the door and broke free of the attic, she heard one final whisper, as chilling as it was familiar. "You should never have come back." And just like that, the house fell silent again, waiting for the next soul to wander in.